everyone, and good Friday afternoon. If you're on the East Coast, stay dry if you can. Not an easy thing to do, I can assure you. Jim Williams and Sean Miller here with you today. And we got a jam-packed, we have a weekend where it doesn't matter what sport you like, there's something there for you. We got college basketball, we got college football, we got pro football, we got horse racing. We got everything you can imagine over this weekend. So we're going to jump right in, Sean. And tonight, couple of good basketball games, couple of good college football games. You want to start with the football game first?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting because the first game is East Carolina, Cincinnati. Obviously, Cincinnati was the team that made the playoffs last year. So I think that's an interesting game. But really, the two later games, Colorado and USC. I mean, USC is a huge 5-touchdown favorite, but USC is still in the mix to make the national championship playoff. And the late game, the really late game, 10:30 in Vegas is Fresno State and UNLV. UNLV started season 4-1, and then since then has fallen off a cliff here, lost 4 straight. So, but I think interesting games there, and obviously Cincinnati. The Cincinnati East Carolina game might be actually the best game of the night. It's 6-3 East Carolina and 7-2 Cincinnati. Cincinnati's continued, basically doing what they've been building this program, and it's a big game.
Well, Luke Fickell, East Carolina has been a total pain in the butt for a lot of teams this year, and
that's right.
They are, they're not deep, but they're good. They can put 22 guys on the field; they'll give you hell, and. With the weather being what the weather has been like, the last thing Cincinnati needs is to play East Carolina right now. But, the schedule's there and they got to do it. And, I got to believe that East Carolina this is one where East Carolina, if they won, it wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah, I mean, Ehlers throws the ball a little bit. I mean, he's got 2,600 yards passing, 18 touchdowns. Both quarterbacks, really, Ehlers and Bryant, have both been really good this year. So I think, both teams are, can move the ball, score. They're really mirror images of each other. It's interesting. We don't often get, sometimes these games are not, they're competitive. But maybe some of the MAC games, 14-9 and stuff like that, they're competitive, but maybe not the greatest games to watch on your eyes. But this could be a pretty decent game tonight, I think.
It could be, and as I say, what East Carolina's done this year is they punched above their weight in pretty much all season, and they haven't really been out of any games this season. So. I would expect this game to be close, and I would think that Cincinnati is going to be psyched to try to get that 8th win if they can tonight, because they're still technically in the playoff hunt in the AAC, and so I think that they're going to do their best to make it work, and it'll be as you say. I mean, this is kind of like. This is clearly the most even on paper game of the night.
Now, it's interesting too. Just with those Maction games, Tuesday, a 6-point game, a late score for Ohio to make it 16 points, a 1-score game, Toledo Ball State. Wednesday night, Northern Illinois 3-point game, Central Michigan beat Buffalo in a 4-point game. So the games have actually been really competitive on once they in November when they moved to the Tuesday night and the Wednesday night games. I always think if you got nothing, everybody's always got something to do. If you got nothing better to do, hey, just tune the thing on and watch a little football. I think
check out a little Mac Vision. It's I've seen every USC game this year and every UCLA game this year, and I honestly think UCLA is a better team. But that being said, tonight Colorado, who has done zip this year.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Fired the
They
coach.
come to the Coliseum and play. Now, Lincoln Riley knows better than anybody that you cannot take anybody for granted. He can't be looking forward from here to the showdown with UCLA in 2 weeks' time. He's got to put his, they got to. One of the things that has interested me with USC is they have not put their foot down on the throat of anybody and just said, all right, let's just blow you out of this building. They've had shootouts, and fortunately for them, they've got talent enough offense that they can play shootout. But defense, the old saying, offense wins games, defense wins championships. They don't have a championship defense on that side of the ball for USC. They will clearly, in my mind, get by Colorado. I don't know what the spread is, but I wouldn't
34.
go. Oh, they're not going to. No, they're not going to beat Colorado by 34 points. And that's only because their defense. That's only because their defense can't stop you.
Yeah, you're
they
probably
can outscore
better.
You, but they can't stop you.
Yeah,
they played. I mean, the game they lost was in Utah in a game they should have absolutely never lost, and they lost it. They blew it. That was the only game they lost. But they played some tough. Oregon State was a tough game for them. They stumbled their way through. So, I mean, look, I think USC is a talented football team, but most of that talent is on one side of the ball and not the other. So,
and it's Caleb Williams, obviously, and he's arguably right now sophomore. His receivers are very good. Arguably, top. If USC keeps winning, I would think he's top 3 in the Heisman. If they beat UCLA and then beat Oregon and get to the playoff and get to the final, I would think he's going to be there with CJ Stroud. But it's interesting. Yeah,
don't sleep on DTR, the kid at Dorian. He's at UCLA over in. He's played good too, and he has he has a little more of a running game that go with his passing. But DTR is a good little quarterback, and he stuck around for one more year to help chip out and see if they could do something. And they definitely have knocked it out of the park over in Westwood. So I wouldn't sleep on that. And we're seeing at Oregon that. The kid who didn't seem to make it at Auburn seems to be doing really well.
He's got some big numbers. They have a big game this weekend against Washington. Here let me get that because the Knicks has. I talked about this on the ESPN show and just want to kind of go through these numbers because it's pretty. Knicks is 2,495 yards, 22 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Penix has 3,232 yards and 23 touchdowns. So Michael Penix, who has been unbelievable for Washington. He's thrown for every game he throws for 300 yards, 500. He threw for 500 against Arizona. He's thrown basically, in every game. And they beat Oregon State last week. He threw for 298 yards. So there's the Pac-10 has got some. Pac-12 has got some big games.
Got some throwers. They got some guys who can chuck the ball. So let's circle back and talk a little basketball. Houston is in your neck of the woods tonight. They are playing at St. Joe's, and
that's interesting.
There's an interest. Normally, and we've talked about this before. Normally, you don't get the highly ranked team to show up at somebody else's gym. And tonight we have. I think this is one we talked about yesterday. Gonzaga and Michigan State. That's a neutral. That's a neutral site on the aircraft carrier. Duke and University of South Carolina Upstate. for all of you who want to know where that is, I have no clue. It's upstate
upstate in South Carolina.
outside in South Carolina somewhere. Good luck and Godspeed. They're playing Duke. And your North Carolina boys are playing tonight.
Yep. And the two games, the two road games for ranked teams are both in Philadelphia because Villanova takes on Temple at the Liacouras Center at 7:00. So Philly's a hotbed of basketball. Yeah, it's St. Joe's at home at 6 against Houston, and then go to that and maybe jump over to the Liacouras Center and catch the second half of Villanova Temple if you're down in Philly tonight.
Grab a cheesesteak on your way over.
Yeah, you're not, and Drexel's at home against Old Dominion, so that's at 7. So yeah, if you're not going to my buddy, DJ Caesar from Sirius XM, he's got a big show down in Philly tonight on Arch Street. If you're not heading to that, go see a little basketball game.
Right, go check. Right, drop by later. It's the basketball match. Do they even play in the Palestra anymore?
I don't know. Penn? I'm not sure. I haven't been there in a while.
That used to be the mecca for college basketball back in the day. As a matter of fact, that's where Temple used to play when Chaney was coaching.
Yeah,
Palestra. But I have no idea who plays there anymore.
Rex's at the Das Center.
Yeah, they've always played off campus. I mean, on campus. Yeah. On campus. So they used to have the Big Five at the Palestra, which was fun. Let's move over to Saturday, college football. What piques your fancy on Saturday?
There's a couple games I like Saturday. The first one is, I thought that the Rutgers Michigan State game was interesting. I think the Michigan State players are going to be back. Michigan State can get bowl eligible. Rutgers was up at halftime last week, 17-14, and then got absolutely annihilated in the second half. And then did I think 52 or 59-17? I think it was 52. Michigan came back and did that. But, Alabama plays Ole Miss at 3:30, big game. And the Ole Miss only has one loss. So Alabama is actually ranked higher than them. But, Alabama's basically done at this point. UCF and Tulane, two ranked teams playing. I think that's an interesting game. And
the Green Wave have played really well this season. And they've had a good offense. And, I think the thing with Tulane and UCF has not had a lot of success off campus. They've done real well at the bounce house, but they have not done as well against Tulane. There shouldn't be too much in the way of weather issue in New Orleans tonight, although there might be some leftover rain in the equation. But the thing with UCF is they've had inconsistent quarterback play, and the thing with Tulane is they've had very consistent quarterback play. So I think at the end of the day, whoever wins this and is going to challenge Cincinnati for the title in the AAC.
Yeah, and that one of those leagues. I mean, look, they had a team in the playoff last year, so it's
Michael Resco's done a really good job as the commissioner of the AAC, and they reloaded with some good schools to replace Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF, who were headed for the Big 12. So Mike pushed for power, quote unquote power 6. He felt that his conference was every bit as good as the Big 12. But the Big 12 poached those three teams from him, and Mike went out and replaced them. So, but that's not going to happen. Nothing we need to worry about this week because they're not going to change for another year or two. So we'll see there.
I think I think the big games, big at 7 o'clock and 7:30 in that window there. Washington at Oregon, TCU at Texas. TCU in the top 4, the playoff rankings, and as a 7.5-point underdog. And there's a game at 7:30 that I think is a little bit off the radar for teams, but North Carolina, who's ranked 15th and only has 1 loss, is going to Wake Forest, and the winner is the first team that gets to 70 points. In this game is going to get the win there. The over/under in this game is absolutely ridiculous, 77. So for a college football.
You sure they're not thinking back to when Dean Smith was over the 4 corners? I mean,
yeah, it's actually 78 now. It's up to 78, which is borderline. I don't know if that's the highest it's ever there's ever been. It's probably very close, but
so basically we're talking whoever has the ball last wins. Is that pretty much what's going to
happen? Yeah, and just Drake May, if they keep winning, he's a freshman, by the way.
Right,
if they keep winning here. He's got 3,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Right. If they keep winning, and he's got another, I think he's got some rushing yards as well. He rushes for 70 yards a game or something like this. If they keep winning here, he could definitely get himself into the discussion, and they have a chance to get into that playoff game or the championship game, and maybe they're if they win this game, they're in the championship game. And now facing Clemson, who has struggled at times there. So I think maybe they could do something here.
Well, yeah, and look, so many people wrote off Mac Brown, and that was a big mistake. Mac Brown didn't get, how many coaches have been through Texas now that suddenly supposedly were very, very good coaches, but for some reason they got stupid when they got to Texas. Texas goes through coaches like I go through potato chips. They just if they don't see Tom Herman 4 years in a row gets them to a bowl. 3 of those 4 years, he has multiple, 10 or more wins. And then his final season, they went 7-3, went to the Alamo Bowl, and he got fired for 7-3.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Texas wants. I really don't. And then the big news for them next season, I guess their starting quarterback at freshman will be a Manning. So we'll see how that plays out. But I don't know when you're the number 4 team in the country and you go to Austin, perhaps in the past, that would be something that might be intimidating. It hasn't been intimidating anybody recently.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, you and I talked about wonky lines, and wonky lines can go one way or the other. I can't remember personally the last time a number 4 team in the country went on the road to face a team at the 11th or something like that.
No, they're like 16th or
18th. So they're further down the road. Okay. And they were the dog. I mean, that surprises me. Somebody knows something we don't know.
Yeah, I think if the receiver's out, it's an interest. I think TCU wins the game either way, but I don't know. I don't really understand the line, to be honest. This TCU team, all it does is just win games, close games, blowouts. I mean, it's just done really, really good job. See here. Duggan was a little bit of a question mark, but he's going to play. I think the question is Quentin Johnston. He didn't practice, but he practiced on Wednesday and Thursday. So if he plays, I think TCU wins the game.
I would agree. The other one, the SEC game with Bama and and Mississippi State. That's the Lane Kiffin game. That's Lane, who used to be the offensive coordinator at Alabama with Coach Saban, has done really well in Mississippi State. And trust me when I tell you, as someone who's been to Starkville way too many times.
Oh, Mississippi.
Oh, it's Ole Miss.
Yeah, Ole Miss. Yep.
Okay, well then everything I said, don't pay attention to. Totally worthless. Mississippi and Ole Miss in Alabama. I don't know what would happen if Alabama lose to Ole Miss. That would be a pain. I will tell you. Somebody this week said to me that they thought Jimbo Fisher's job was, on the line at Texas A&M, and I said, "All right, you're the alumni at Texas A&M. You may not like Jimbo Fisher. Are you going to write a check for $85 million? Because that's what's going to cost to get rid of him."
Yep.
So, I know they got money at Texas A&M, but stroking a check for $85 million to get rid of Jimbo Fisher, I don't think that's going to happen.
Now they got players decommitting now just because 3-6 right now. But you can't be 3-6 and get these recruits, even if you're paying them crazy money for NIL letters. But I don't. It's
the guy who's both vexed me and shouldn't have surprised me is Brian Kelly beginning to have success at LSU. He started off with things not necessarily going well, but then things began to get better for him. So I'm not a big Kelly fan, but I give kudos to people who actually, turn things around, and he's got LSU on the right track right now, and shouldn't be surprised because LSU is a brand name football team where they can recruit in the state of Louisiana and get some fantastic kids. But yeah, that does kind of vex me a little bit that Brian Kelly's doing well. I'm not a big fan, but kudos, respect to him on that one. So there you go. Let's move over Sunday to the NFL. We got an early game on the NFL Network. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Seattle Seahawks in a soccer stadium that's pretty well known to both of us. Bayern Munich plays in that building. It's a beautiful stadium.
Yeah.
So, and the interesting thing to me was this week, a study done by the National Football League has shown that there's more football fans in Germany than there are in the UK.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know from going over to I know from going to England a lot. I mean, I've been out to the Genting casinos at 1:30 in the morning on a Sunday night when I'm over there to watch the 8:30 game kickoff here. I remember the one year the Giants and Cowboys played, and they were both one team was 7-8 and one team was 8-7, and the winner won the division, and it was just a massive game. And there's a lot of people in the casino watching it until 4:30 in the morning because nobody sleeps over there. But yeah, I think that World League helped to develop some fans, even though it wasn't the greatest. It didn't maybe work. Or I know there's some games there. They play the European the leagues over there now. So
yeah, it's the thing that's interesting about football in Europe, and it's kind of like a bowl game, okay? Because you're giving up a home game. So the NFL pays both teams very well to go over and play those games. So, but it's very disruptive for the two teams, which is why you get the bye after you take them. So Brady and the Buccaneers have to win this game. I mean, last night Carolina came through. We thought Carolina would come through last night against Atlanta, and they did. And so if the Buccaneers and Brady and the boys can find the magic touch with getting the ball in the end zone, then good news for they go to 500 and they take the lead in the South. Meanwhile, Pete Carroll, who bid adieu to Russell Wilson, seems to have not missed them in the least. They're playing they're playing fantastic ball in Seattle.
Yeah, so, and they're in first place.
I'll tell you what, if I'm the Buccaneers, I am so happy that I'm playing this game in Munich and not in Seattle.
And the thing is too, for me, I think I'm of the opinion that game last week with Brady getting the win in the last minute there could have changed. I know they're not very good right now, and a lot of players are banged up, but I think that could change the whole momentum of the season for them here.
Yeah.
So,
well, the year they went to the Super Bowl, to your point, they had a horrific, first part of the season. And then on the 8th game, which was a game against Atlanta, coming out of a bye, they were a mess, roadkill at halftime against Atlanta. They were down 20. It was 20 points. So being down 20 points against Atlanta, and they rallied in the second half. They won, and they didn't look back. So to your point, maybe, just maybe, they're getting healthy and getting good at the right time. Cade Otton, who is a tight end out of the University of Washington, a rookie tight end, has suddenly kind of blossomed into that offense, and he's kind of the baby Gronk for Tom Brady. Brady likes to throw to his backs and likes to throw to his tight ends, probably more than anybody. And the fact that he's got a guy in Cade Otton who can catch, but also is physically gifted enough to be a good blocker as well, certainly doesn't hurt. So that early game is actually going to be worth watching, I would think. Seattle and Tampa Bay. That's on the NFL Network. For those of you wondering where you're going to be able to find it, that's where it is.
My friend Vinny's at the game, actually. He flew out. Oh, okay. Yeah, he's from Manchester. I see him whenever I go over there. He works one of the pubs there right next to Old Trafford. So, he flew out there. He's a Seattle Seahawks fan. So he's excited to be able to get to see his team over there.
Yeah.
Having to fly, instead of having to fly, 15 hours from Manchester all the way to Seattle, or however long, 10-hour flight there. He's excited to be able
to throw another 6 hours on you in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you a question. You've seen the games over there. We've both seen it. There's got to be a disconcerting change, because your week is not like a normal week, number one, because you're not at home, but you're basically on display. You have things that you have to do.
Yeah.
But you're in a different country. You're literally playing a game in a place where football is something that is played with a round ball, not the one you're playing with. And you've got a very interested fan base, not necessarily an overly knowledgeable one, but an interested one. I would think that plays to Brady's strength because he's the rock star guy.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do if you're, Seattle, because this is all foreign, no pun intended, on every possible level.
I think Pete Carroll's, he's one of those guys that goes with the flow, and
he's easy going guy.
Yeah, so he's probably gonna, maybe he's got him at a this game, and maybe he's got him at a game here. I know Bayern Munich played yesterday. Borussia Dortmund playing behind me against Mönchengladbach. Maybe he's got him. It's interesting because a lot of these football guys now are soccer.
Big soccer fans, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he's got him. He might be one of those coaches that have him going and doing stuff and bringing in. I know he's one of those guys that has him reading books. So
right,
take in some of the take in the stuff and the scenery. You don't get a chance for this all the time. So maybe they're doing that, some and some of the practice, whereas maybe, the guys that have done this, been there, done that, hey, listen, I'm gonna, focus on my thing. We're here. This is a business trip. We're here to do business.
We're here to do business. Yeah.
So, I think that might be the two ways that, maybe these teams differ here.
Trap game, I think. Vikings, Bills. What do you think? Trap game or forget about it, Bills?
No, I think, well, we don't know if Jared Allen's going to play. That's the first thing, because his elbow, I still think this is a little bit more. I still think this is a little worse of an injury than they're letting on, but I like Minnesota in this game, to be honest. Especially if he doesn't play. This Minnesota team, I just, they have a chance here. They're still, people still kind of think they're a little fraudulent. So we'll see, but they have a chance here to really change the way people think about them here if they can beat the Bills, even if Allen doesn't play. I mean, it still would be a big win. So.
Yeah, definitely. Cowboys and Packers. This could be, you hate to say must win, but the only way I can see the Packers making the playoffs is as a wild card team, and their schedule is not kind to them. This game with Green Bay is home to Dallas, but that seems to me to be one of those games that the Packers have not performed well. And
the problem is for them, they have after they play Dallas, they have a short week. They play Tennessee, who's going to run the ball down their throat with Derrick Henry. Then they have the Eagles at the Eagles. Then they're at the Bears. Then they have the Rams, who are in the same kind of situation. Then they're at the Dolphins, who are very good. Then they're at the Vikings, or they play the Vikings, and then they play a Lions team that just beat them. So. I think they're done. This team is I think they're done. I think Rodgers is throwing people under the bus left and right.
Yeah.
He probably should have just moved on, to be honest. I mean, you see this a little bit, like it's hindsight obviously now, but they're I think they're in trouble. The other thing too is, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I mean, there's some other teams like this. I was actually Atletico Madrid in soccer, but these older teams, I don't know, like how long are they gonna be down for? If this thing blows up after this year, what happens here? Like, are the Packers bad for 5 years? Are they, do they go back to the way they were before? Favre and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they've gotten really lucky with 2 straight quarterbacks that have been superstars. Yeah.
Well, you can look at the Steelers, right? And see where they didn't set themselves up they didn't set themselves up for success with regard to having a clear successor to Ben Roethlisberger. And they're paying the price for that now. Now they got Kenny Pickett, and I think Kenny Pickett, personally, I think will be a fine NFL quarterback. But had they brought themselves somebody in and drafted somebody earlier in, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the transition for that, whole Steelers thing, I think Roethlisberger held on way too long. And I think that, the Steelers are paying the price for it. So that goes to your point of what happens when Aaron Rodgers exits stage left. There's not a lot of people on that Green Bay Packer team that instills victory at this point. So you're going to have to redo that roster, and basically they're going to have a rebuild that's going to take a while.
Yep.
So the game, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's right. I think they're going to be, I just think these things are going to be they're going to be one of these teams that are going to struggle for 3 or 4 years, and I think they're going to look back on the last couple of years or last 3 years when they had these chances at home against Tampa Bay, and then last year against the Rams, and they didn't even get to the Super Bowl, let alone win one. They've only won one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, and they've only been to one, right, and forever. So they kind of have built this really good team, and they haven't really won anything.
They can't get over the hump.
And they're going to look back and say, "Wow, those are the good old days," but they weren't even that good. So you didn't even win anything. I always think you have these teams. Yeah, you got to win. I mean, Kansas City right now, it's the same thing. The Chiefs, obviously hadn't won in a while, but if we get to 5 years from now and Kansas City has one Super Bowl from all this dominance, they lost. They should have won last year. They were up 21-3 at halftime, and they just collapsed and these other things. So. I think you got to take advantage of them when you get a chance, but they haven't.
The Sunday night game, the Chargers and the Niners, that game's being played over at Levi Stadium up in the Bay Area. That has a potential to be an entertaining game.
Yeah.
We know what the 49ers are going to do. They're going to run. And we know what the Chargers are going to do. They're not going to run. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I think the 49ers have been very good at overperforming this
year. I think they're good. I think they're going to be. I think they'll be. They've been banged up. I think they're going to be there at the end of the NFC. I think they're going to be the team that gets there with the Eagles, maybe in the championship game. I think the 49ers are probably gonna. The Chargers have a lot of injuries. Excuse me. And I'm not really big on the coach and the play calling sometimes. So but they're banged up wide receivers, Keenan Allen and some of the other receivers there. I think they're in a little trouble in this game.
Well, Kyle Shanahan can sometimes outthink himself. And I think that's or overthink himself. That being said, I do believe Kyle. I do believe Kyle is very good at taking what he has and making it better. So we'll see how that works out. But at the end of the day, I think the Niners probably take this game against the Chargers, and we move on. But speaking of the weekend and speaking of moving on. This is the last weekend of soccer until the World Cup begins. So anything we should be watching on the soccer side?
Yeah, there's a massive game tomorrow there's a couple of big games. There's a huge game in England tomorrow. There's a really big game in Germany on Sunday. Saturday the Spanish league's already taken a pause. They're doing Copa del Rey. So, but yeah, tomorrow in the Premier League, there's 4 windows of games. There's 7:30, 10 o'clock, 12:30, and 2:45. These are all Eastern time in America. But the 12:30 game, Newcastle and Chelsea. Newcastle, of course, the richest team in the world, now owned by Saudi Investment Fund. And this team I thought they were a year away. I thought this year they'd finish top 6 and then, strengthen, and then they'd finish, they'd arguably be, fighting for top 4. They're way ahead of that. They're one of they only have 1 loss right now. Right. A lot of draws, but they come into this match in 3rd place. In 14 games, they have 1 loss. So they got plus 17 goal difference. They just have, they're 6 draws. So they're only 5 points behind Manchester City, and they're 7 behind Arsenal, but Arsenal's played a game less. So Chelsea right now is in 7th place, and Liverpool, if Liverpool wins, could pass them. So Chelsea could end the weekend I mean, Fulham plays Manchester United too. I mean, Chelsea in theory could end the weekend all the way down in like 10th place. And they're really struggling here.
Like drafting in a NASCAR race. You start off in first place and look behind you, and you're down in sixth place because everybody just went by you.
Yeah, I mean, they you know what? They've scored 17 goals in 13 games. They don't score. They don't have a 9. They just don't have someone up top. I mean, I look through their roster. They have a lot of guys that are the same player. Obviously with the US, Pulisic. I mean, I actually think Aronson's a better player than Pulisic, but and Aronson should be the face, but it is what it is. But they just don't. They don't score goals, and coming into this is at Newcastle, at St. James Park. Newcastle is favored in this game, rightly so. But I just think it's pretty. If you would have told me this, the whole setup for this game before the season started, I would have said that's crazy. But they're way ahead of schedule, and Chelsea's just not that good, and I think Todd Bowley's been a little bit disruptive with some of the stuff since he took over, and it's kind of hurt this team.
So what about the game in Germany that'll be played after the NFL game in Germany?
Yeah, it's a huge game, second place against third place, and it's not, you got Borussia Dortmund behind me losing right now to Mönchengladbach 4-2, so usually it's these the teams like that. It's Borussia Dortmund, but now you got Union Berlin, one FC Union Berlin and SC Freiburg. Both teams in Europe. Both teams doing very well in Europe. Freiburg comes in third place. They both have 27 points, and they're decided by goal difference, but both only 4 points behind Bayern Munich, and it's a really big game. Yeah, it's a really big game because that team is going to stay within 4 points, and maybe get into the Champions League. I mean, but I think both teams still have chances to win the Europa League, and so and both have decent chances. So
it's not bad. Any final thoughts before we get out of here on a Friday afternoon?
I'm gonna just try to stay dry here. I'm just glad I don't have to go do that powder puff in the rain. I was not looking forward to that. I was excited to do the game, obviously, but I think just a lot of stuff on. So
we'll get a chance later.
It'll be something. It'll just be freezing by then. But I'm gonna watch North Carolina tonight, so we'll see how they do.
There you go. Sit back and watch them. We would be remiss, and we're not gonna be remiss if we did not wish everyone a happy Veterans Day.
Yes.
Thank you for your service, men and women of the armed forces who serve now and who've served us in the past. And we will this evening tip a glass to you, and we thank you very much for your service, and we respect you, and we're happy that you have been serving us, because without that, the freedoms that we have today wouldn't be around. So
yes, thank you, Dad.
And my father as well, who was a World War II veteran. It's when Tom Brokaw wrote the book, The Greatest Generation, he wasn't wrong. It was a great generation, and hopefully we'll live up to the expectations. But happy Veterans Day out there to everybody, and we'll be back on Monday and be able to talk about not just what happened over the weekend, but begin the process of talking about what's going to happen in Qatar in the not too distant future.
That's right.
So there you go, boys and girls. Until Monday, for Sean and for myself, have a wonderful weekend. You see our social media handles, unless they've been screwed up by Twitter in the last 2 days, where everybody has a blue dot on their names. You can hit us up on there. You can hit us up on I'm at Jim Williams 200 on Instagram. So if you want to give that a shot, you can. And starting next week, we're going to put some links in for all the stuff you can read that Sean has, writing about the upcoming World Cup. So
yeah, going to be a lot of it.
there's going to be a lot of stuff.
Weekend. Yeah, we got a lot of videos and all kinds of other stuff all over the place. So a lot of different content.
Plenty of fun stuff to share with you next week. So thanks for joining us for our first week. And we survived. We're here. And we'll be back next week. So come join us, whether you're in Antarctica or whether you're on the Jersey Shore. Either way, we're cool with it. And we're happy to have you. And if you have any pizza suggestions, obviously that went over well yesterday. So we're always here for that too. So for Sean, I'm Jim. Have a good weekend, everybody. Take care and enjoy yourself. Get out there and just have a little fun with some